Welcome. I'm your vocational training instructor, and man, am I excited to get you started on your very first day in the fabrication workshop. But hey, before we even think about touching a single tool, we've got to lock in a rigorous, safety-first mindset. We're talking about transforming raw materials here, and that requires a massive amount of respect for the sheer power of these machines. In this explainer, we aren't just going to rattle off a boring list of rules. No way. We're going to dig into the why behind every single procedure so you and your crew stay in one piece. So let's jump right in. All right, here's the game plan for today. 1. Fabrication and safety basics. 2. Drilling and what we call the helicopter effect. 3. Welding, your fire shield. 4. Grinding and the ring test. And finally, 5. Our golden rules for the workshop environment. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Fabrication and Safety Basics. Okay, so before you step up to any machine, you've got to understand one absolutely crucial fact. Workshop safety is not one size fits all. We are fundamentally changing raw metal using extreme heat, intense friction, and massive torque. And we do this across 3 distinct processes. We've got drilling, where we're precisely removing metal. Then there's welding, where we use intense heat to permanently add to and join structures. And finally, grinding, which is an abrasive micro-finishing process. Getting the hang of these 3 pillars, that's your foundation for industrial fabrication. Now, look at this, because this is a paradox you literally cannot afford to forget. Over at the welding station, heavy leather gloves, they are your mandatory shield. They keep your hands from basically catching on fire. But if you wear those exact same gloves over at the drill press, you are creating a catastrophic hazard. Seriously, that thick glove can catch on the spinning spindle and drag your hand right into the machine before you even know what happened. That's just the reality of the shop. What saves your life at one station could literally maim you at another. Moving on to Section 2. Drilling, beware the helicopter effect. So, stepping up to the drill press. A lot of people think a drill bit just sort of pushes its way through metal. It doesn't. The cutting lips at the very bottom are actually shearing and slicing the material, while those spiral grooves on the sides, the flutes, they act exactly like an Archimedes screw. They forcefully pull these razor-sharp waste chips up and out of the hole. It takes immense friction and torque to make that happen. And that immense torque brings us to a really terrifying hazard. We call it the helicopter effect. If you think, oh, I'll skip the clamps and just hold this piece of metal with my hands, listen to me. The bit is going to catch, and when it does, driven by all that torque, that piece of metal is instantly going to spin at the speed of helicopter blades. It literally becomes a lethal weapon right at chest height. So always clamp your workpieces down tight, tie back your hair, and absolutely never ever leave the chuck key sitting in the machine. All right, Section 3, welding, your fire shield. Now, when we walk over to the welding station, the rules totally flip. Here we're dealing with electrical arcs that generate temperatures upwards of 6,000 degrees Celsius. To put that in perspective, that is hot enough to melt solid steel in seconds. To stand in front of this miniature inferno, heavy gear is your absolute armor. It's blocking severe thermal burns, it's stopping intense UV and IR radiation from instantly destroying your retinas, and it's filtering out toxic metallic smoke. So yeah, your auto-darkening helmet and your fire-retardant leathers, non-negotiable, period. Once you're safely zipped up in that armor, you'll run through these standard procedures step by step. First, preparation, grinding it down to bare seal. Then, tack welding to lock your alignment in place. Next is the root pass, which goes deep inside the joint, followed by filler passes to build up that structural strength. And finally, you finish off with slag removal using a chipping hammer. Every single one of these steps demands your absolute, undivided focus. Let's look at Section 4, grinding, the vital safety check. Grinding is this abrasive, micrometric finishing process, right? And it relies on spinning these bonded wheels at just incredibly high speeds. Because those wheels are facing such massive centrifugal force, we have to ask ourselves a literal life-or-death question before we ever mount a new one. How on earth do we detect invisible cracks? Well, the answer is the ring test. You absolutely must perform this vital check every single time. It's simple, really. You just suspend the wheel and tap it gently with something non-metallic. If you hear a clear, high-pitched ring, you're good. The wheel is fully intact. But if you hear a dull thud or a clack, stop right there. That is a blaring alarm telling you there are internal cracks you can't see. If you mount that compromised wheel, it could literally explode into shrapnel mid-spin. So yeah, never skip the ring test. Finally, Section 5, Golden Rules, Workshop Environment. Okay, so we've talked about the individual machines, but your safety definitely doesn't stop there.
Maintaining constant situational awareness is what protects your coworkers from your arc flashes, rogue flying sparks, and crazy hazardous noise levels. You've got to remember, you aren't alone in the shop. Your responsibility extends to every single person sharing that space with you.
And the whole foundation of that awareness, it's strict adherence to the 5S principles: sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. Look, keeping a meticulously clean shop isn't about making it look pretty. Not at all. It is literally your first line of defense against tripping over junk, spontaneous fires, or losing the exact tool you need in a critical moment. In this environment, organization basically equals safety.
Add to that your essential pre-operation checks. Never treat emergency stops or spark deflectors like they're just annoying suggestions. They are built-in safety architecture for a reason. You've got to read the manual and manually verify your whole setup, from the power cords to the chuck keys, before you even think about hitting that green start button.
Honestly, our entire workshop philosophy comes down to this one quote: master your tools, prioritize safety, build with precision. By rigorously respecting the operating parameters of every single machine, we're not just avoiding trips to the hospital. We are staying safe enough to actually do our jobs, transforming raw materials into reliable engineering realities. So, I'm going to leave you with this one question to chew on. As you step onto the workshop floor today and every day after, keep your head on a swivel, maintain that situational awareness, and ask yourself before every single action, will your next move build precision or invite disaster? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. Now let's get out there and get to work safely.